Hey there, Blazer fans, and welcome to episode 17 of The Dragon's Den, a podcast for those that bleed green and gold. Today I've got a very special guest, a former UAB left tackle that went on to play pro football for 8 years in the NFL, AAF, and XFL, Mr. Matt McCants. Matt's got an awesome story, so I won't keep you waiting much longer. Just remember to stick around until the end for the sixth installment of This Week in Blazer History with Steve Rutherford when we go back to UAB's 1989 NIT Final Four run. Let's get into the episode. Thanks for listening. All right, Blazer fans, I've got my next guest here for episode 17 of The Dragon's Den, a former UAB left tackle from 2007 to 2011, Mr. Matt McCants. How you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing great, Will. Thank you so much for having me on, man. It's such a blessing and a pleasure to be a part of this great podcast. I'm also excited to be on episode 17 because 17 backwards is 71. So that was my number at UAB. And I'm so excited to be here, man. So let's get it.
Awesome. Well, it's great having you on, and I'm gonna get my listeners a little reacquainted with you since it's been a while since we had you on the team and everything. But
Yes,
so in high school, you received honorable mention on the Mobile Press Register's All-Region team as a senior at Williamson High School, and you helped Williamson advance to the Class 5A playoffs. You only played football in your senior year. Before that, you were playing tuba in the band. You know, when you get to UAB, you had a great career. You finished Conference USA honorable mention list in 2009. You were Conference USA first team in 2010 and 11. And by the end of your UAB career, you had the fourth most starts and the fourth most games played by a Blazer player. You were selected in the sixth round of the 2012 NFL draft by the New York Giants. And you played football for 8 seasons at the pro level, 4 teams in the NFL. And you ended up playing for the Birmingham Iron in the AAF and the St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL. But, you know, going back to your high school career, like I said, you only played 1 year, your senior year. What made you finally play football in your final season in high school?
I mean, it's so surreal because, I mean, my whole 4 years in high school, or 3 years actually, everybody was asking me to play football, man. Hey, please come out and play football. You too big to play in the band. Why you carrying that tuba around? So I heard all these stories. And the bottom line boiled down to that my mom did not want me to play football. She was afraid that I would get hurt. She was afraid, you know, something would happen to her baby boy. I was the only child, and she was just super protective of me. And I finally convinced her to let me play football. She made a deal with me. She said, on your next report card, which was my junior year, if you make all A's, I'll let you go play football. And true to her word, I got all A's, and she held up her end of the bargain. I remember going home happy, showing my mom the report card. See, I told you I could do it. All A's. Look, I can play football now, right? And I'll never forget. She said, "You can play, just don't get hurt." I said, "I won't get hurt, Mom. Don't worry about it. Everything's gonna be all right." And so, as we get to spring practice, the first practice, the first rep that I'm in, I'm playing tackle. I'm pulling around on a sweep play. My job is to block the cornerback that's coming downhill. We see each other. We make a collision. We collide, but his collision was a little bit more violent than mine. So when he hit me, he ended up breaking my arm, and that was also another surreal moment because I'm sitting on the field, my arm broke, and I'm like, man, I literally just told my mom I won't get hurt. The first play I made, I break my arm. So it was all a funny story, and it just goes to show you that, man, things happen for a reason. And, you know, if I would have played football earlier or whatever, you know, may have happened, but everything happens on God's timing. And, you know, that's what I believe in.
Okay. So, you know, what was your recruiting process like since you only had 1 year of film?
Well, it was very unique because I went from having, you know, no scholarship offers, no nothing, to when I first started playing. And then eventually I started getting like letters and you know, people would stop by the school and, you know, see me and check me out. And it just was all unbelievable because I had no prior knowledge of any of this. I didn't, know what to expect. And it was just such a different world to me. And I honestly, I never looked at it as a uh, big deal, if that makes sense, because it was just so new, and I was just so trying to, work on little things like my technique and football type things that when all the college recruiting stuff started to come, it was almost overwhelming because I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't have a clear process of how to handle all that. But it was definitely mind blowing to see all these schools, offering me scholarships and coming in just off a few games of film because after I broke my arm, I had to sit out for like 8 weeks or 9 weeks, and I ended up having to get my starting job back. And I didn't get my starting job back until the seventh game of the season because the kid was playing so good. He was a freshman. I was a senior, and you know how it goes is always next man up. But it was unfortunate what happened to him was it was the seventh game of the season, and I had been on the sideline, the whole season, and I hadn't been playing, and whatever. And we're playing our rival, BC Rain, and we go down and we score, and coming off the field, he meets another player and they congratulate each other. And they like, you jump up, you celebrate, you do a chest bump. But when he comes down, he completely tears his ACL. Like ACL, MCL, total knee blowout. And it was just another surreal moment because I hadn't been playing at all to now I'm expected to be the guy. But that goes to show you that no matter what, you always got to prepare for that opportunity. You don't know when it's going to happen, and you always work like you're going to be the guy, you're going to be the starter. And so adopting that mindset early on allowed me to be successful when it was my time to be called upon. And so that's why I really think I was able to have, a good recruiting process and whatever, because as soon as I was ushered in, I was able to perform. And that's a big deal because nowadays, especially nowadays, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. If that makes sense.
It's crazy how things work out like that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's unfortunate that that guy had to get hurt for you to play, but it's amazing that your career really took off from really from two injuries, really from that
yeah.
happening. But fast forward to UAB, your freshman
hmm
season, you started 7 games and you played in 11. Your first game at UAB was at Michigan State. What was that environment like for you as a freshman, and what do you remember from that game?
Well, I got to take you all the way back to as soon as I stepped on campus. And now, mind you, I'm coming from high school. I just literally a year removed from the band. Only played 4 or 5 games in high school, like literally actually playing. And so when I get to UAB, it's another overwhelming situation. I get there, I'm already being targeted as, oh, you're going to redshirt, you're going to develop, that's what they like to call. And so I never had that type of mindset. I'm a competitive guy, one of the most competitive people you'll ever meet. And so I'm always striving to prove myself or to, prove something to someone that I belong or whatever. So I had a lot of uh, type of motivation built up because reading little things in the newspaper or whatever, he's a tuba player, this and all that kind of drove me because I wanted to show that even though I know I can play the tuba quite well, I'm not just a tuba player, if that makes sense. I could do a multitude of things, and so I just wanted to always show that. And when I first arrived on campus, I was the last person on the depth chart. Literally nobody was expecting anything of me other than to be a development guy. And so once I accepted the fact that, hey, I know I have a chance to be successful. I know I want to go out here and prove myself. I got to work. And that was just my whole mindset that by the time the game starts, September 11th or September 9th, or whatever that day was when we played Michigan State, I wanted to be the guy. And slowly but surely, I worked my way up towards that. And just kept my head down and I kept fighting. I kept fighting because I had to overcome a lot. And we had, injuries that happened. We had a few guys to go on. And what I just always went to the back of my mind that whenever my opportunity comes, I just wanted to seize it. And when I get that opportunity, I'm not going to let it go. And so when I had that type of mindset, I was unstoppable.
That's awesome. So in 2009, you started all 12 games for the Blazers and you earned a spot on the All Conference USA honorable mention list. You guys finished the season with the greatest total offense in UAB history up to that point, with over 5,100 yards on offense when you were led by senior QB Joe Webb. What was your relationship like with Joe?
Joe Webb is a special individual, man, because he was there for me, especially in a time where I needed, that big brother type, mentor type guidance. My freshman year coming in, it was such an overwhelming ordeal, and it was so new that I had a lot of growing up to do, a big learning curve, whatever you may say. And Joe Webb really helped, bridge that gap for me. I had to actually sit out my second year, 2008 season for academic issues, and that was just, for one, a humbling experience, not being able to play football, having to, go throughout that process. But also, too, it was a teaching moment. It was a growing moment. And Webb was definitely one of those guys that helped me through that and made me better because of it. And so when you go through things, God places people in our lives to help strengthen us and keep us uh, grounded and keep us strong. And definitely Joe Webb is one of those people in my life, and especially during that time when I needed him most. So definitely a great relationship with him, man. Him on the field was such an electric person to watch. He would make plays that would have you in awe. I mean, every day it was like a routine thing for him to take a 70-yard run to the house or make a dazzling throw or shake people's shoes off, and it was so cool to watch, man. And our team as a whole, man, our offense was just dynamic that year. We had a lot of seniors and a lot of leadership on that group. Jake Sykes, we had so many people. Adam Hollyfield, man, receivers. I mean, it was just a great, team, man, and defensively as well. So 2009 was definitely the year for us, in my opinion, that I feel like was our closest chance to, winning the conference championship when I was there.
In 2010, you earned first team All Conference USA honors, becoming the 20th player to do so in UAB history. And you guys had another strong offense again with the second highest total offense in school history up to that point with 5,000 yards of offense.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the strong offense, you guys slipped from a 5-7 record in 2009 to a 4-8 record in 2010 with losses to Mississippi State and Tennessee by 8 combined points and 2 other losses by combined 5 points. Do you guys think that you just had something missing, or was it just a few bad breaks in games?
Yeah, I definitely just think it was just a few bad breaks because we definitely had, especially 2010 also, man, we had a great offense. I think, in my opinion, if we would have transitioned to Brian Ellis sooner, we would have maybe had a better chemistry or whatnot, because when he came in, it was just a different transition to the offense that David Isabel was running, which was similar to what Joe Webb was doing at the time. And so once we made that switch to Brian, which was more of a pro style type drop back quarterback, we were able to, Jay was able to use his weapons, Pat Shedd and Jeff Anderson, and you had Franchell Ford. You had so many guys that we were able to be dynamic. But I really truly believe that if we made that transition sooner, we would have been able to gel more efficiently. And it was definitely, a lot left on the table that year.
Okay. Yeah. Despite struggling, you guys still had some very memorable wins, including the Hail Mary
Mhm.
catch from QB Brian Ellis to Jackie Williams and the win over Troy. What do you remember about that final drive? And did you guys think you had a realistic shot being down 6 with a minute 9 left starting at your own 1?
Yeah, well, and how I always approach things, I always focus on doing my job. And so I was just so focused on my responsibility that I figured that if I didn't do my job, it didn't matter. Anything else didn't matter. So that was just my main focus. I wasn't thinking about if we had a chance to win or what. I just really honestly was thinking that I don't want my guy to be the one to make the play. And so that was just always my mindset every time I walked out, that if I just do my job, then I'm counting on another person to do their job, which is throw, or do their job, which is catch. And so, you know, if we all develop that mindset that if we just, do our job, do what we're supposed to do, then everything else take care of itself. And so obviously, we did our job, the offensive line. And that clip is on YouTube, man. I still go back and watch it from time to time, just looking at that drive, how crazy it was, because it was so many close calls in that play, man. Pat Shedd caught a ball that he was like almost out of bounds and came diving back in and saved the drive. I mean, it was ridiculous, man. I forget what hash we were on, but Brian Ellis had just enough arm strength to get into to the end zone, man, and it was amazing, man. It was a great feeling, man. Hopefully, man, UAB renews that rivalry with Troy, man. Cause to me, that's one of the better in-state games that you can have.
Well, that's definitely true. I missed that game with Troy so much, and it was
Yeah,
sweet. The last time that we got to play him, it was sweet beating him 48-10.
yeah,
But yeah, I definitely
yeah,
missed some of those
yeah.
hard fought games. That was
Man, it
definitely
was some
one of
hard
them.
fought game. Yep.
One of the other highlight wins from 2010 was the 50-49 double overtime win over Southern Miss when Neil Calloway rolled the dice on a 2-point conversion. What do you remember from that game?
The night prior, we were all at dinner, and we were sitting around, and our receiver, my good friend Mario Wright, he had an emergency health issue, man. I don't know what it was, a seizure or something, but it was so traumatic, and it brought the whole team together. I'm just thinking about it still to this day. It shakes me up because I was sitting at the table with him, and when he started having his episode or whatnot, it was just I had never experienced anything like that, and then two, you see somebody who you're close with, somebody who you work out with, you see every day, you sweating, and he's in that vulnerable position, man. And it was just a hard thing to see. And as a team, man, we just wanted to rally around Mario, man, and go get that win for him no matter what, man. And honestly, I think that rolling the dice was, we out here, we came to win, and let's do it for Mario. And we went out and got it done. And it was sweet, man, because Southern Miss for so long was just a thorn in our side. And I'll never forget when we beat them in 2009. That was just a magical feeling. And then to do it back to back at their place, double overtime, with that score and that type of atmosphere and everything that was surrounding the game prior, I mean, it was just an emotional roller coaster, man. And it was awesome to win that day, definitely.
So your senior season in 2011, you earned Conference USA First Team honors again for the second straight year, and you were named All Conference USA member by Phil Steele's College Football Preview and the College Football News. UAB finished 3-9, but again had chances with 3 losses, coming by less than 4 points. What was your overall feeling about your career at UAB once it ended?
Well, I was definitely, sad. It was just a lot of mixed emotions, man. But it was definitely such a great feeling, man, to have met so many people and the experiences that you experienced. But it was just, I felt we always left a lot on the table. Never going to a bowl game in my career. That was one thing that always hunted me. Not winning a conference championship. When I felt like we had all the pieces to do it. And so it was just a lot of mixed emotions, man, but definitely thankful to have, been through that journey, to have gone to UAB and met the people that I've met and gone to places that I've gone. It's definitely humbling, and taking it all the way back to just coming from the humble beginnings of just being in a band to playing a few games in high school. Now I'm starting at Michigan State and playing Florida State and playing against so many going against so many great players and playing alongside so many great players, man. It was awesome, man, to be honest with you.
That's great. Well, speaking of all the guys you met, I talked to you a while back about having you on,
Mm-hmm.
and you told me straight away. You said you need to have Darian Smith on before me
Yeah.
because he was your offensive line mate at the center position, but you said that he was the anchor of y'all's offensive line. You said I should talk to him first.
Yeah.
What's your friendship like with Darian?
Man, Darian is one of my best friends, man, because for one, we're forged in such such steel and just hardness that we've been through together and things we've experienced together, man. It builds that bond. But just to speak on the magnitude of Darian, man, and we call him Pee Wee. And in 2009, Jake Sykes, he graduated and he had just started 50 straight games and was all conference and was all these accolades and that was a big void to fill, man. And Pee Wee came in and didn't miss a beat, man. And he definitely made our offense go. And that's was my feeling and my understanding of the importance of the center position, because once you have that person who can man the middle, who can, command and make the calls that you need and get everybody in the right position and get everybody lined up and, get in people's, butt when it's when that time is needed. You need those guys, more than ever, man. And Pee Wee was definitely that example. He was team captain. He had all the accolades, man, and he was well respected. So I definitely wanted to give that gratitude to him, because he was definitely one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that made our offense go.
Well said. He was definitely a great person to talk to, and I know he
Yeah,
shared a lot of the same feelings about you as well. But
yeah, no doubt.
some of the other guys you mentioned some of these guys a little earlier, but you played along some great, very
Yeah,
underrated players in UAB history:
yes,
Jeffrey Anderson, Jamie Bender,
yes,
Swayze
yeah,
Waters, Will Dunbar,
yes,
Marvin Burdett,
yes.
Frantrell
R.I.P. Will
Forrest,
Dunbar.
Pat Shed, Elliott Hennigan,
Yeah,
offensive line mates Jake Seitz, Chris Hubbard, and Darian Smith. What
yeah,
were some of your memories with these guys?
man. Just, I mean, it was honestly, man. Every day was a memory, man. I was one of the jokesters on the team, man, and I always prided, because UAB at that time, man, we weren't winning many games. It was, it was a tough time doing the program, and our relationship off the field is what kept everybody happy, what kept everybody, gelling and wanting to be a part of it, because it was such a family atmosphere, man. And it's still to this day, bro. We can call each other. We talk. We laugh about good times. We think about the bad times and the memories, and it's so good, man, to be able to recall those times, because, like I said, it was during a tough time, man. At that time, when not winning games and you're working so hard and you're doing everything right and you try to be successful, but you feel like you just can't make a break, man. But for us being there for each other was definitely one of the big things that kind of kept everything in perspective. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Going forward from UAB, you were drafted in the sixth round of the NFL draft by the New York Giants and went on to play pro football for 8 years with the Giants, the Raiders, the Cleveland Browns, and the Chicago Bears in the NFL. You played for the Birmingham Iron in the AAF and the St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL. So, what was pro football like for you?
Pro football definitely was a huge, huge learning curve for me. Um, More than I had ever experienced. I mean, it was tough going from the band first initially at Williamson to football, and then from Williamson to UAB was tough. But from UAB to the NFL was just, I mean, it was like from the earth to the moon size jump. For me, I feel like the biggest thing that helped me was that going to a place that established you as how to perform, how to practice, how to be a professional, and under great guidance by Tom Coughlin, who was the head coach at the time. And mind you, they had just won a Super Bowl, so they had brought all those pieces back. You had Eli, you had David Deal, Chris Snee, all these veteran guys, and on the defense, and especially the defensive line, you had Justin Tuck, you had Chris Canty, O.C. Umenyiora, Jason Pierre-Paul, Linville Joseph, all these people that I got to practice against every day and hone my skills and prepare myself and learn on how to be a professional, because that's the biggest key. You got to learn what to do as a professional. You got to learn how to take care of your body. You got to learn how to time manage. You got to learn how to rest. You got to learn how to do so many different things. You have to learn a playbook the size of a phone book, and learning how to be responsible in that type of environment is tough. And especially on a kid coming out 21, 22, you don't have any knowledge of anything. And so to be thrust into that type of atmosphere, man, it's definitely a big learning curve, man. But I'm thankful that I was able to be drafted by an organization in a certain culture that showed me and taught me how to be a professional and how to practice and how to perform and what matters most.
We saw you with the St. Louis Battlehawks, like I said, in the XFL.
Yeah.
Could we? The XFL is coming back. Is there any
Yeah.
possibility of you returning?
I may be in some form of capacity, but as far as playing, I've definitely set that window. For me, playing this past year, before COVID, this last year, my son, he was old enough. He was 3 at the time, and early on in my career, me and my wife, we couldn't have kids at the time. For whatever reason, God determined that it wasn't time for us to have kids, and so my biggest thing was when I was playing, I always would see the players, they would bring their kids into the locker room, and they would, have their jerseys on and running through the field with their footballs and all that stuff and just having so much fun. I always wanted to experience that. And when God finally blessed us, man, with our son, I always, wanted it. And I said, if I ever had the opportunity, man, I would. And when he got old enough, because I was still playing when he was young, but when he got old enough to understand and see how things win and everything, I wanted to give him that opportunity, man, and he loved it, man. I don't know if you watched many XFL games, man, but it was definitely a family fun atmosphere, man. It was geared towards excitement and definitely what a 3-year-old would love, man. Just highlights, fireworks, and just all type of nonsense and stuff. So he loved it. He had a great time. The team embraced him, and it was a great opportunity for me, man, to venture out and do something I never did before, man. That's go out. You play in a new city, St. Louis, who didn't have a football team, man. They were so thirsty for a football team that they embraced us so much, man. It felt like we were rock stars, and I hope it comes back, man, because the XFL, it was a definitely good product. They're talking about merging with the CFL, maybe. Hopefully that works out somehow, but it's definitely needed, man. You need some type of bridge or whatever between the NFL and something else, because you got so many guys, man. It's only a limited amount of jobs in the NFL, man, and there's so many other opportunities for guys that they fall by the wayside. So the XFL definitely provides that place, and it's in the United States. You don't have to go to Canada. You don't have to go out to these other places, and so I really enjoyed it.
What advice would you give to young players just starting out in high school or college?
The big advice that I would give, man, would be to stay grounded, to stay in the moment, and to be where your feet are. That makes sense. We get too caught up in expectations of what people want for us, or what society deems that we should do, or this and that. We get in a hurry and we put unrealistic expectations on ourselves, and we put unrealistic goals and achievements on ourselves. And when we don't reach them, we get deterred. And the biggest advice that I would tell a young player, especially a young player that's starting out, is to just take it day by day. One 1% better every day is at the end of the year 365%. So if you think like that, if you think small, and you just keep your head down and you go to work and you just focus on, I'm just trying to get better in this moment right now. By the time you do that continuously, consecutively, you've done made so many strides and gains that you'll blow your mind. But if we always checking and seeing, looking and see, everything, every time we do something that, oh, I want instant gratification for this, or I want to be recognized for this, that if we don't get it, we get deterred. So not putting any stock or value into that and just focusing on what I need to do every day to improve and to be a better person, be a better player, and to be a better role model or citizen. And so as long as they focus on that, they keep those type of mindset and objectives, the sky's the limit.
It's great. I love that answer, Matt.
Yeah.
So who have been your most influential people in your life?
Definitely Jesus Christ, man. He's definitely the example that I try to follow. I definitely try to think about what would Jesus do in so many circumstances and whatnot. And number two would be my dad, man. I just saw him sacrifice so much to provide, to lead. I mean, he was the example of the man that I strive to be to this day. It was no better father that I could have, man. Definitely.
So how is life now?
Oh man, life is wonderful, man. You know, outside of what we had to go through with COVID, but I'm gonna tell you, it was definitely a blessing, man, because I was able to, for one, spend much needed quality time with my family, man. Because when you're always playing football, you're always on the road, you're always training, you're always, moving about. So that was definitely some just much needed togetherness, and for another reason too, just to clear our thoughts sometimes, man. We're such a busy society, man, that sometimes we forget and we overthink things. And to have a period like COVID to where we couldn't do anything, we had to, you know, just rely on our own thoughts and try to kind of almost like living in pre 1800s with no, electronics and no way to get around, man. We had to try to find a way to combat, and doing that, man, it was really, really cool. I'm enjoying being a dad, being a husband. I'm training now, personal training, doing offensive line training, doing a lot of things that just, make me happy at the end of the day.
Well, that's great. So, can you still play the tuba or any other instruments, or are you pretty much done?
No, actually, man, I played the tuba probably because I ended up buying one probably about 4 or 5 years ago. So I'll get on it probably once every few months just to show that I still got it. Whenever I get the bug. Usually it's around like Mardi Gras time because I'm from Mobile, and Mardi Gras is definitely one of the big things in Mobile that we would do, and it's just definitely a big party. So I definitely still got the chops now. I can play with the best of the best if need be.
All right.
Yeah.
So, how can my listeners engage with you now?
You can definitely hit me up on Facebook or hit me up on Instagram. I'm always, available to chat or anything. Anybody ever wants to, sit down and have a conversation, or, any needed prayer or whatever I could do to help, I'm always big on, man. I believe that as society, if we help each other, and help each other grow, we're able to overcome so many things, man. Because when we try to do things ourselves, sometimes we don't get as far, man. We can go fast alone, but together you can go far, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I hope some of my listeners will reach out to you. It's great to see
Yeah,
some of my listeners reach out to former players and everything, and that's one of the
yeah,
reasons why I started this podcast. So, um,
got you. Well, how long had you been a UAB fan, man?
man, I've
Like,
been a fan since I was born. My family, both my parents are graduates of UAB, so I
oh
I
wow,
grew up around it all the time, and I I saw you play, every year that you were at UAB, and I followed your
Yeah.
career in the
Oh
NFL.
man,
So man, I was it was definitely a thrill to have you on.
gotcha.
And
What was your favorite UAB memory that you had growing up?
I love that you're asking me the questions now, man. I'm the one that normally asks the questions.
I mean, I know. I mean, but it's just curious because there's so many good. Like for me, mine, my favorite UAB moment is for different reasons outside of the game. But it was in 2009 when we beat Southern Miss for the first time. How Matt Water catches the interception to seal the victory. I don't know. You ever heard of the Black Eyed Peas, the singing group?
Yeah, definitely.
So they have a song called "I Got a Feeling," and so that was our first time beating them. And after the game, and this was my first time hearing the song, so they said, "I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good." And I said, "Wow, this is from the heavens." They know, they know. That night was definitely a great night, man. And so that was definitely my favorite memory at UAB because we had never beat them, man. And number two would probably be my senior year in 2011 when they were drafted. I mean, when they were ranked,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the nasty bunch, and their defense was so touted. But guess what? It was senior night for us, and so you had a senior-laden team, man, that we were not going to be denied. And so it was definitely some fun times, man.
Yeah, both of those are definitely up there for me. I remember
Yeah,
that one in 2009, especially with
yeah,
that was I just remember jumping up and down and giving my dad a big old hug and
yeah.
going over to the scoreboard and trying to get a picture of it because I mean I had so many times I had been just heartbroken by Southern
Ah,
Miss
yeah.
beating us. So it was
Mm,
so awesome to see us beat them for the first time.
yeah.
But it was definitely a great memory. So now I'll go to my social media questions. I got a
Okay,
couple from Facebook, and I got a
got you,
lighthearted question for you at the end. So
got
my
you.
first Facebook question comes from a former UAB football player, Cedric Buchanan. He
Big
asked,
said.
he asks, ask him why so many good teams in Mobile have such big kids at linemen. He said we never saw 6'4" or bigger linemen, and he also asked, was Hoover a team they feared?
Well, so to answer the first question, I'm gonna go with it's something in the water. I guess that's usually what people say. Oh, it's something in the water. We down there on the coast, man, and we're right down the bay. So, but Mobile is a rich tradition of football, long standing, way before my time, man. The Senior Bowl is there. You got so many great high school programs down there, man, and it's just that football is a way of culture, way of life down there. And I feel the reverse about basketball. Like in Birmingham, I feel like basketball is the king. And but you got Hoover, you got all these too. But Birmingham definitely has a better basketball, program than Mobile. But throughout the whole state, man, we all have great talent. This talent up and down the state, man. That's why I always like to pride it instead of saying, cities. The whole state as a whole is, rich in football, man. And to answer the question about Hoover, they weren't in our region or what's the word I'm looking for, classification. They were 6A. We were 5A at the time. So only thing that we knew about Hoover was they had a show on MTV called Tour Days, and I was like, this is crazy. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was so cool that they had a McDonald's in their cafeteria and all this stuff. I was like, man, you go to your own cafeteria, you like, I'm eating the scraps. Yeah,
That's that's funny, man. I forgot about the McDonald's in the cafeteria, but
man, they had all that on. Yeah, I'm like, man, they off the chain.
my next question comes from William Kennedy on Facebook, and he asked, "Ask him how being in the marching band made him a better football player."
So being in a band, being able to play an instrument while moving and doing all these type of drills and whatnot, you have to exclusively use your diaphragm to breathe. And so your diaphragm, when you breathe from your diaphragm, your core is able to be engaged more. You're able to have a better posture. You're able to, uh, experience so many, more benefits than chest breathing, if that makes sense. So I contributed definitely to just learning how to diaphragm breathe, uh, and then also too the type of marching band that I was in, we were very prided on our footwork, on the type of dance moves we had to do. So pretty sure all that played some part in it. I mean, it definitely didn't hurt it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My last question I got for you, it's a lighthearted question, one I ask all my guests. And my question for you is if you could relive one day over and over again, what day would it be and why?
I have so many great days that I mean I don't know, because obviously, right, everybody want to say, oh, when I got married, when that child was born, but I'm like, shoot, because my wife, when we had our son, she was in 43 hours of labor, man, and I was like one of those old school boxing ring coaches, man, like just waving the towel, like, come on, man, you got it. And I'm like, shoot, do I want to, deal with that again? Or like when when we got married, right? And I love my wife, man. It was the day of my dreams, man. But I picked the wrong size shoes, and so I had like these small size shoes, and my feet are killing me the whole time. And so, do I want to relive that? Like, do I got like? This is my question: do I have to relive everything, or do I get to choose like the good points? Do I have to have the wrong size shoes again? So that all depends, but I'll probably go. I'll probably go outside of just all good. Probably my son being born, man. That was a special moment, man. I still think about it to this day. It's just because what happened was, man, 2016 that's what the year he was born was a tough year, because I had lost my dad, and I had lost him in July 1st, and my son was born in December. So that was just I mean, God, he ordained it to where like I didn't have any void left, and I wasn't missing anything. He knew when to give me a child, when to do things, and so I was just so thankful, man. And to this day, I still cry when I think about it.
Well, that's a great answer, Matt. I
Yes,
love it.
sir. Yes, sir.
That's awesome. I haven't gotten a response quite like that. I haven't had somebody say, can I change some aspects of that day? But
Yeah,
that's
no,
great,
yeah,
man.
because I'm like, shoot, my feet were killing me, man. I think I remember definitely switching to like some just regular black Nikes, like halfway through, like, man, I just I gotta do something.
That's
Uh,
understandable.
yeah,
Well, that's great, man. I really appreciate it, Matt.
yes, sir.
Um,
Well, I'm glad we were able to make this happen, man. Thank you so much for being accommodating to my schedule and working around with me. And but I knew it was gonna happen eventually, man. And I'm just glad it's definitely happened now at the right moment. Everything's right on time.
yes, sir. It is. Thank you so much again, and I hope everybody enjoyed episode 17. I'm gonna fade into the bottom half of the episode, which is the this week in Blazer history, and the ending, and we'll wrap things up. But thanks again so much, Matt, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Will.
A big thank you to Matt for sharing some of his memories with us. It's really amazing hearing his story, starting out as a tuba player, and 5 years later, he's in the NFL. I really enjoyed watching him when he was a Blazer with us, and I always looked out for him when he was playing pro football. I was looking for him all the time on the field. It always seemed like so. It's great to see that he's doing well now, and I hope you guys really enjoyed the episode. But now I will transition to the sixth edition of This Week in Blazer History. All stats and game recaps gathered by Mr. Steve Rutherford, longtime UAB fan. This segment of This Week in Blazer History is going to focus on UAB's 1989 run to the NIT Final Four. UAB's historic reputation is made on the impressive repeated appearances in the NCAA tournament in the 1980s, so early in the program history, but their run in the NIT Final Four appearance in the last year of the 1980s was impressive on its own right. At this point in the month, UAB was one of the last 8 teams in the 1989 NIT field, having beaten Georgia Southern at home by a score of 83-74 and going on the road to beat the Richmond Spiders by a score of 64-61. Next up was Connecticut, who was the defending NIT champions from the 1988 season. In the 1980s, before the NIT was owned by the NCAA tournament, there were no seeding preferences, meaning the better seeds did not always get the home game. Who played at home and who played on the road was often decided by who the NIT determined to be the more attractive team, and the committee seemed to help certain teams make it all the way to the Final Four in New York City by giving certain teams home court advantages. There was usually a Big East team or a big name team in the Final Four. Teams from smaller conferences usually were put into tougher road games to ensure that they did not upset the Madison Square Garden party. UAB did not fall into this trap in 1989. After defeating Richmond, the Blazers learned that they were headed to Connecticut to play the Connecticut Huskies. Connecticut played most of their games in the Hartford Civic Center, but this game was played on campus in Storrs Fieldhouse, which only held 4,604 seats. Connecticut could not get the Civic Center for the NIT game due to a hockey game and a Muppet show. Connecticut usually played a few games in their fieldhouse each year and had won 26 straight games at Storrs Fieldhouse. They had not lost a non-Big East game in the fieldhouse in 9 years. The seniors at UConn had never lost in the fieldhouse. The 1988-1999 UAB team was immensely talented, led by first-year transfer from North Carolina State, Andy Kennedy, and his backcourt mate, Michigan transfer Jack Kramer. The Blazers featured a front court that included junior Alan Ogg, who was reaching his peak potential at center, as well as senior Reginald Turner and junior Larry Rambert. This team headed to UConn extremely confident, with a 21-10 record. In the words of Connecticut coach Jim Calhoun, UAB, quote, looked like a team on a mission. The Blazers easily handled the Huskies' full-court press and was not intimidated by the small gym and the student section right behind the Blazer bench. Alan Ogg had 7 blocks in the game, mostly against UConn's Cliff Robinson, who had been touted as a possible first-round NBA draft pick. Ogg's 7-1 presence in the middle forced many shots to be altered. Offensively, Andy Kennedy was 6 of 11 from three-point range. Reginald Turner scored 18 points despite getting 2 fouls within the first minutes of the game. At the half, UAB led 45-41, but Turner, Rembert, and Kramer all had 3 fouls. In the second half, UAB led by 11, but the lead had been cut to 4 in the final seconds. However, UAB hit their free throws. Alan Ogg and Dylan Howard, normally poor free throw shooters, sealed the win by each hitting 2 free throws in the final 10 seconds. The Blazers won 85-79, a game that Gene Bartow said was the best they had played all year. They were heading to the NIT Final Four at basketball's mecca, Madison Square Garden. The other teams in the Final Four were St. John's, Michigan State, and St. Louis. The Blazers' first opponent in New York City was St. John's. 3 Big East schools had been alive in the quarterfinals, but UConn and Villanova had lost. St. John's was a local New York City team who had already played 4 games that season in Madison Square Garden. The Blazers had several logistic problems in the Big Apple. Their bus broke down on the way from LaGuardia Airport to the hotel. Because of a hockey game at Madison Square Garden, UAB had to practice at New York University, which was 47 blocks from the hotel, and when they arrived to practice on Easter Sunday, the facility was locked. After finally convincing a security guard that they were supposed to be there, they were able to practice. The Big East of the 1980s was extremely physical, and UAB was playing their second Big East team in a row. Blazer players said that St. John's was just as physical as UConn, but the refs let them get away with more. St. John's jumped out to a 32-15 lead in the first half, but UAB managed to cut the lead to 32-22 at half, which was UAB's lowest point total for the year. Coach Gene Bartow felt that the inability to practice at Madison Square Garden had made a difference. In the second half, UAB managed to cut the lead to 6 points with 11:14 to go. At that point, in one possession, the game got away from them. St. John's scored a basket and was fouled by UAB guard Barry Bearden. Bearden protested the call and received a technical. After the technical shot, St. John's got the ball back and scored again. In one possession, they had pushed their lead from 6 to 11. That was the difference in the game as UAB lost 76-65. Andy Kennedy was held to only 9 points in the game. But the season was not over. In those days, the NIT had what many considered to be a meaningless third-place game. After losing to St. John's, they would play Michigan State, who had lost to St. Louis. This would be UAB's last game of the 1980s, which had been an amazing decade for the Blazers. They had appeared in 2 NITs, 7 NCAA tournaments, 4 Sun Belt titles, 7 20-win seasons, and had 217 wins in the 1980s. It set a standard for UAB fans that has not been matched since. Apparently, no one told UAB or Michigan State that this was a meaningless game. UAB led the first 30 minutes of the game because Reginald Turner, playing in his last game, was on fire. He scored the first 12 points for UAB on his way to a 26-point outing. The Blazers led 37-29 at half. In the second half, Michigan State went on a 14-3 run and took the lead with 10 minutes left to go. The game went back and forth in the final minutes. In the last 5 minutes, UAB hit 5 of 6 free throws, and Bearden scored 5 points from the field to tie the game and send the so-called meaningless third-place game into an overtime tied at 68. UAB was down 4 points with 1:38 left to go in overtime. Barry Bearden hit a three-pointer and cut the lead to 1. The Spartans answered with a bucket, and Bearden hit his 8th three-pointer of the game to tie the game with 53 seconds left to go. After a Michigan State miss, Coach Bartow called a timeout. He wanted to work the ball inside to the hot Reginald Turner, but Michigan State's Judd Heathcote anticipated this and had Turner covered tightly. As the clock ran to 0 and a second overtime in a meaningless third-place game seemed imminent, Barry Bearden drove to the basket and dished the ball to Alan Ogg, who slammed the winning basket home with 3 seconds to go. The Blazers won 78-76 in overtime. Included on the all-tournament team was Barry Bearden, who was 8 of 13 from three-point range and had 26 points, and Reginald Turner, who also had 26 points. Senior Reginald Turner had averaged 26 points a game in the NIT run and had 662 points on the season, which was the single-season scoring record at UAB, breaking Oliver Robinson's record of 655. However, Turner's teammate, Andy Kennedy, would break the record 2 years later. And that was the end of the famous 1989 NIT Final Four run for UAB. But I've got a few more moments here to keep our This Week in Blazer History segment going. Even though it didn't happen exactly this week, I've got 2 moments that I just wanted to note for my listeners. March 13th, 1991, Dr. Charles A. McCollum announced that UAB would field an NCAA Division III football team. Dr. Jim Hillier, who had served as the coach for the club team for its 2 seasons, was named the head coach. And on March 18th, 2013, the UAB Marching Blazers won the International Band Competition in Limerick, Ireland, beating out 17 other bands from the U.S. and Europe one day after performing in the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin. A couple more moments from This Week in Blazer History. March 23rd, 1993, in the first night game held at Jerry D. Young Memorial Field, the men's baseball team defeated Southern Miss by a score of 6-4. And the last one I've got from March 27th, 2012, Jared Haas was introduced as the 5th head coach in UAB men's basketball history. Haas played at Kansas and had served as an assistant coach at Kansas and North Carolina prior to coming to UAB. Of course, we remember Jared Haas's time here at UAB pretty fondly, with notable wins over teams like North Carolina, the conference tournament championship win over Middle Tennessee, the NCAA tournament win over Iowa State, and of course the conference championship season just before he departed for Stanford. But that's going to wrap it up for This Week in Blazer History and episode 17. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't checked out my social pages, you might have just missed out on my Friday giveaway that included some awesome Blazer-themed prize packs with items from Yellowhammer Creative here in Birmingham, a UAB pop socket, some decals from the Dragon's Den, and of course a Las Vegas Raiders mini helmet signed by my episode 17 guest, Matt McCants. Hopefully you are able to participate, but be sure to follow my pages to see UAB Athletics news and see when I'm doing my next giveaway. Just look me up at Dragon's Den EFEL on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And that's all from me. Good night, and go Blazers.